Hello and welcome to Brands Hatch for the final round of the Radical Enduro Championship season. It's a really close battle in the championship with just 59 points separating the main contenders. And with 85 points at stake in this final 90-minute race, we should be in for an exciting season finale. Well, Scott, you arrive here leading the championship, although it's incredibly close. So staying out of trouble and finishing this race is going to be really important, isn't it?
Yeah, so we've just finished qualifying. I think I was fourth overall. We're being a little bit careful because this is the last round and we're thinking of the championship, which is obviously the big goal for us and Nielsen Racing. So really focusing on the championship this weekend.
Absolutely, and there's bad weather forecast today. How is that going to affect things for you out there?
Well, we'll see what happens when it comes round to the race. We were at Spa last weekend, so obviously the weather conditions there are very similar to this weekend. Rains, then dries. So really all I want is a very stable race. It can be wet or dry. It's just when it's mixed conditions that it becomes a bit more of a lottery.
Absolutely. Well, best of luck for the race and we'll look forward to seeing how you get on. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Well, Steve, it's a number 2 on your car. You're second in the championship and you're going to be starting this race from second, but I'm guessing you'll be trying everything you can not to be finishing second in the championship.
Yeah, for the championship, I do definitely need a first place. Scott Mansell was ahead of me by 21 points, so I need him to ideally finish fourth or lower, or DNF, which would be very nice. But it's a 90-minute race, long race, so all to play for.
Absolutely. It is a long race, and this is a challenging circuit, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's going to be quite physically demanding on myself. I'm a solo driver, so I've got the full 90 minutes myself, where a lot of the teams have got the 2 drivers. I've got a little bit of success penalty back from Spa. So yeah, it's going to be a tough 90 minutes.
So rolling start for this one. The number 8 car of Nick Jones sits on pole position. The man we've just heard from, Steve Burgess, in the green car alongside. Row number 2 is Matt Bell and the current championship leader, number 63, which is Scott Mansell. It's a mandatory pit stop race. We've got driver changes as well. We're about to get the final race of the 2015 Radical Enduro Championship underway here at Brands Hatch. And as the lights go out, the cars accelerate their way up towards Paddock Hill Bend for the first time. And it looks as though Matt Bell is going for the lead of the race, with Steve Burgess sweeping round the outside though to hang on to it. So it's Steve Burgess that leads as they head up towards Druids for the first time, but Matt Bell is putting him under pressure as he sits there in second position. And in third place, that's a great start by Marcelo Maritiotto, who's worked his way up into third place. The champion-elect number 63, Scott Mansell, sits there in fourth. Nick Jones, who sat on pole there, was tumbled down through the order. He is there in fifth position. He shares this car with Scott Mansell once more this weekend. Field all safely through the first couple of corners, including that car there, which is Ewan Mackay, sharing the car with Will Plant this weekend. The lead 3, though, under pressure, not least of which is Steve Burgess, who's going to surely lose the lead of the race. Matt Bell had got the car position beautifully well as they went round through Hawthorne's corner. There goes the number 25 car of Martin Verity. But somehow Steve Burgess has still been able to hang on to the lead of the race, and from attack it's now to defence for Matt Bell, who's lost out. Marcelo Maritiotto has been able to squeeze his way through. Burgess leads, Maritiotto second, Matt Bell there in third place, and Scott Mansell there in fourth position. Mansell knows he needs to stay in touch with Steve Burgess, because come the pit stop window, he will remain in the pit lane area for 85 seconds. Steve Burgess will remain in the pit lane area for 65 seconds. So he's got to keep pressing on come this race. The fight is certainly on for second place. Maritiotto under pressure from Matt Bell, who jinks out from behind, thinks better of it as they head over the start-finish line and in towards Paddock Hill Bend that time through. So the TechServe number 5 machine remains there in third place. Matt Bell, who shares the car with Graham Tilley, who will drive this car in the second section of the race. Whereas Marcelo Maritiotto will hand the car over to Tom Ashton. And of course our race leader, Steve Burgess, as we heard from him, he will do all 1 hour and 30 minutes behind the wheel himself. Driver who won what was the Radical Clubman's Cup last year, which this season is nowadays known as the Radical Sprint Championship. And from Nottingham, stepping up into the Enduro and going superbly well, potentially in with a very strong chance of winning the championship, depending on what goes on in this race, because his main championship rival is down in fourth position. And if they stayed that way, well, it would mean that Steve Burgess would be the champion if he won, and Scott Mansell were to finish in fourth place. Well, it would give Burgess the championship. Plenty of racing still to come, though. The rest of the field just working their way through. But it is Burgess that leads, the man from Nottingham. There goes Marcelo Maritiotto, who again looks as though he's coming back under pressure from Matt Bell. Very quick single-seater driver was Matt Bell. He's a very, very quick sports car driver as well. So the leading three head out of Clearways on towards Clark Curve, and is this Matt Bell's opportunity? Marcelo Maracciotto is a little bit slower coming out of Clearways corner. Matt Bell draws himself alongside Maracciotto and has already got himself ahead by the time they get towards Paddock Hill Bend. Maracciotto tried to brake late and re-attack on the approach, but if anything probably cost himself time there, and is now under pressure from Scott Mansell as they come up towards the braking area for Druids. Safely out of Druids they'll go. Mansell looking to try and get himself ahead of the black car ahead. Maracciotto hanging on to it though. And you can see these lead four have certainly opened up an advantage between themselves and the rest of the pack behind. So the leading four already out onto the Grand Prix section of the circuit. That's Mark Hignett under pressure there, just losing a place as he went down through the order. Number 81 is Ewan Mackay sharing the car with Will Plant, so it's Ewan Mackay that's got himself ahead of Mark Hignett. Mark Hignett also under pressure from number 25 Martin Verity, who shares with Austin Kinsella. And now we can look at the battle for the lead of the race, because Matt Bell here is trying to mount a challenge for the lead of the race right the way around the outside. At Hawthorns he goes, and that is a very, very brave move and a very daunting corner at Brands Hatch, but Matt Bell was up to the job. He has put the number 5 car into the lead of the race, and Steve Burgess has dropped down into second. Martin Verity also now managing to get the advantage over Mark Hignett, so position gained there for Martin Verity. And it also looks as though Maracciotto is now losing ground on what is a very well driven number 63 car in the hands of Scott Mansell. So Matt Bell leads the race as he comes over the start finish line. Steve Burgess down into second and Scott Mansell up to third. That gives Mansell the championship now. It was in the hands of Steve Burgess a few laps ago, but the shuffling in the order is sufficient so as to alter the championship outcome at this stage of the race, of course. There goes number 30, which is Aaron Bailey. He'll hand the car over to Lee Bailey a little bit later on over the course of the race. And all of the time now pushing on, having taken the lead of the race. Matt Bell, you can see, has now opened up a fairly large advantage in the TechSurf car between himself and Steve Burgess. Goes Mark Crader over the start-finish line. He shares the car with son of co-founder of Radical Sports Cars. That's James Abbott, who will be co-piloting that car a little bit later on. A little fight down through the order actually going on. Mark Hignett under pressure from Aaron Bailey, who wants to attack and defend from Mark Crader at the same time. They may be fighting for places down towards the bottom of the top 8, but they're still pretty close to each other as they head onto the Cooper Straight. Hignett, then Bailey. Then just a little bit behind them is where we see the next of the cars, that being Mark Crader. And by the look of things here, it does look as though Mark Hignett is under pressure. Through has gone the car in the hands of Aaron Bailey. Position gained there, so that means that Bailey moves up through the order. Mark Hignett drops down through the order, and not too far behind him also is Mark Crader. So you can see the three of them as they exit Westfield and then head through Sheen Curve and up towards Dingle Dell. Pretty much tied together, aren't they? So through the left-hander at Stirling's, the squabble between these three continues. And as they head up towards the conclusion of that, heading over the start-finish line now, we can see another battle is fully formed. This is our race leader amongst some of the traffic now. Martin Verity will need dispatching as efficiently as Matt Bell can do so, and also he dives up the inside of number 56 as well, which is Roger Green. First of the pit stops occurring now. That's Mark Hignett handing the car over to Ali Hancock, the former BARC Formula Renault champion a few seasons ago, as the race leader is still amongst the slower traffic at this stage. That is now Martin Verity dealt with. As the changeover in the pits is almost concluded. Mark Hignett and Ollie Hancock only have the minimum of 45 seconds where they have to remain stationary in the pits. And the countdown concludes. Thumbs up given by the mechanic, and Ollie Hancock makes his way out onto the circuit. So Matt Bell still pressing on in the lead. So there's Martin Verity now having gone a lap down. Still trying to work as hard as he possibly can though, because he'll be able to see in his mirrors that Roger Green's not too far away at the wheel of the black and gold number 56 car. So another lap about to be concluded by Matt Bell. And he really has now started to turn the screw, has opened up a good advantage between himself and the rest of the field. Neatly and tidily through Paddock Hill Bend once more, through Druids Corner, all of the time, whilst he is opening up the gap between himself and erstwhile race leader number 2 Steve Burgess. There goes number 24 once more, Ollie Hancock. Here comes Steve Burgess, with Aaron Bailey staying neatly out of the way. The blue flag's waved by the Brands Hatch marshals. Aaron Bailey saw it and indicated for Steve Burgess to pass on the left. So no time lost at all there. Thankfully Steve Burgess met the traffic down the straight, the Brabham straight, rather than through some of the twiddly bits, and there's plenty of those here at Brands. So Steve Burgess looking to try now. He's got clear track ahead of him to push on. So more drivers getting ready in the pit lane. That's Austin Kinsella, who is ready to receive the number 25 car that will be vacated by Martin Verity. And for this man here, Steve Burgess, there's only himself and Scott Mansell that will both go the full duration in this race. They have no driver to hand over to come the pit stops. This is a great little fight going on between James Abbott, who's coming under huge pressure from Scott Mulvern. Scott Mulvern had extra success seconds in the pit, so that's why James Abbott has been able to get the car ahead. As into the pit lane comes Martin Verity. So the number 25 car comes to a halt now, and the ex-Formula Ford champion from the early part of the 1990s, Austin Kinsella, is ready to climb on board. Austin, who is well used to racing radical sports cars, albeit he's concentrated on other championships over the course of the last few years, clambers on board, and before too much longer they will have concluded their mandatory pit stop. Here comes that fight that we were talking about, James Abbott and Scott Mulvern. Of course, Scott Mulvern was the quickest driver in qualifying, qualified the car on pole position, car that was started by Nick Jones in the race, and with the number 25 car remaining in the pit lane, won't be that much longer before Austin Kinsella gets underway, as again Scott Mulvern has another look one way then the other. Austin Kinsella makes his way back out of the pit lane, so the standard 45-second pit stop for Martin Verity handing over to Austin Kinsella. No additional success seconds required, as James Abbott is still doing a very good job of keeping behind the former Formula Ford Festival winner. Further pit stops occurring. That's Roger Green, who's now vacated the number 56 car. Ian Flux, the former British touring car driver, behind the wheel. As our championship leader, Scott Mansell, still continues on. Here's our race leader, Matt Bell. And then we've still got this great fight going on between James Abbott and Scott Mulvern. Scott Mansell, in the meantime, is having to thread his way through traffic. So through the Aaron and Lee Bailey shared privately run SR3 RSX goes the championship leader, and we've still got these two cars absolutely together. Scott Mulvern will be hugely keen to try and get through and past. I suspect he's the faster of the two cars, but James Abbott just driving superbly well, which gives Scott Mulvern no opportunity. Bailey's car has now been dealt with by Scott Mansell, who still continues to press on. So he's got a championship to think about, leading the championship on 460 points coming into this weekend. 80 points for a race win, 2 points for pole position, which goes the way of that car there, number 8, Nick Jones and Scott Mulvern's way. There's also an extra 2 points for fastest lap as well. Steve Burgess pressing on through Sheen Curve, as there goes Austin Kinsella, number 25. Early part of his stint in the race. It looks as though on this lap that maybe Scott Mulvern has just eased off a bit. He's been putting James Abbott under a lot of pressure over the last few laps. That's probably overworked the tyres possibly, so dropping back a bit will allow the tyres to come back to him, the temperatures on the car to cool down again, because of course sitting in the slipstream will bring all the temperatures up. And it may well be that he's going to try and re-attack again. Again, he has another quick look, takes a slightly tighter line in, as Steve Burgess heads for the pit lane this time through. So Steve Burgess into the pit lane, Rob Weldon and the Raw Motorsport guys on hand. Tyre temperatures being adjusted by the look of things. All of these cars running controlled Dunlop tyres. Steve pops the visor, which allows himself to A, talk to the mechanics, and B, just cool himself down a little bit, because having done part of the race, he's still got the other half to go yet. This great fight still going on as well. Scott Mulvern cannot as yet find a way through and past James Abbott as they work their way out of Stirling's and down the straight towards the conclusion of the lap. Steve Burgess is about to finish his pit stop, I would suggest here, so they'll fire the car into life and just make sure that it's in gear as well. And the last few seconds, I think, about to elapse. Yep, so Steve Burgess, erstwhile race leader, led in the early stages, makes his way down the pit lane. Of course, he will have tumbled down further through the order. An order which is, at this stage, still being led by the number 5 car of Matt Bell. As Scott Mulvern again has another quick look to try and thread his way through and past James Abbott. James Abbott still having none of it at this stage. Here's number 24 in the hands of Ollie Hancock. That's the car that's actually set the fastest lap of the race so far, so the extra couple of points, the fastest lap, are currently going the way of car number 24. They're points that this man here could dearly do with, because Steve Burgess, an extra couple of points could make all the difference. As for James Abbott and Scott Mulvern's battle, but it's still absolutely together. Very little to choose between the two of them. So I suspect if Scott Mulvern could work his way through, he probably would pull away. But James Abbott is just making sure that he's not making any mistakes. He's parking the car on the apex of the corners, making it very difficult for Scott Mulvern to work his way through. Is this the opportunity for Scott Mulvern? This time he jinks out and gets himself alongside, heading in towards Druids. Carried a bit more speed though. The two of them are still side by side. James Abbott reasserts himself back ahead of Scott Mulvern, but Mulvern's got the inside line as they head through Graham Hill Bend. Well, it's taken several laps for Scott Mulvern, but he's finally got himself through and ahead of the car of James Abbott, the number 20 machine. Now, what can Scott Mulvern do? He'll want to pull away as quickly as he can, but James Abbott, I'm sure, will have other ideas about that. So the two of them are still locked together. And you can see just behind them as well is Steve Burgess looking to try and close in. Some great fights going on. Here is number 5, Matt Bell, still leading the race. In fact, no, by the look of things, that's Graham Tilley that's behind the wheel of the car now. So Graham Tilley behind the wheel of the car, which means that Steve Burgess is now beginning to close in as well. So this could be important for the championship for Steve Burgess, as he dives up the inside of some of the slower traffic, heading round through Clearways Corner. As they now work their way over the start-finish line, Steve Burgess may well here now be starting to possibly promote himself back into the lead once more, because Scott Mansell has headed for the pit lane. Matt Bell headed for the pit lane a few laps ago by the look of things to hand over to Graham Tilley, and Graham Tilley is now under pressure for the lead of the race as Steve Burgess starts to close in again once more. So as things currently stand, it's still Scott Mansell that's got his hand on the championship trophy for this year. If Steve Burgess can take the lead of the race, which is looking as though he's possibly going to do here, he comes out from behind Graham Tilley, has the inside line heading in towards Surtees Corner, and has taken up the lead of the race. So Steve Burgess takes the lead of the race. Scott Mansell, number 63, is only down in 4th position at this stage. That is not enough for him to claim the championship. It would mean, if things now stay the way that they were, that man there, number 2, Steve Burgess, would claim the championship honours by just 5 points in reality. 519 points he would end up on, whereas for Scott Mansell, he would be on 514. So Steve Burgess continuing to press on in the lead of the race. He's got closing in on him, car number 20 behind, which is James Abbott. James Abbott is looking to try and unlap himself here. That's the car that did take on fuel come the pit stop windows. James Abbott, when he took over the car from Mark Crader, that car took on fuel. Martin Verity, when he handed it over to Austin Kinsella, that car took on fuel as well, because many of the teams weren't quite sure whether they'd make the distance here at Brands Hatch. So for Steve Burgess, he can afford for the car that's closing in on him to get through and past, because it would then put James Abbott back onto the lead lap of the race, which, if there were a safety car, could be very important for him. So Steve Burgess leading. The laps are ticking away. Time is running out for Scott Mansell to try and gain at least one place if he wants to claim the overall championship, because at the moment Steve Burgess is claiming the extra few points for the win. 80 points for a race win. There are 70 points if you are second, and so on it drops from there. 60 points if you're third. And let's just have a quick look. There goes Tom Ashton. He is the car that is currently in 3rd position. And, well, if he can keep at bay this car behind, number 63, Scott Mansell, that would mean that Steve Burgess is the champion. Scott Mansell has got to get past this black car if he wants to claim the championship. And if he does, he's then got to keep his fingers crossed that Steve Burgess does not set the new fastest lap of the race. And Steve Burgess is coming under pressure at the same time from James Abbott. Surely he'll let James Abbott go. James Abbott is simply unlapping himself. Yeah, not a great deal of defence put up by the man from Nottinghamshire, who allows James Abbott through. So James Abbott's back on the lead lap. Steve Burgess, number 2, importantly, still leads the race at this stage. And here comes Scott Mansell. He's got himself alongside Tom Ashton. If he can get ahead of the car, which he is almost just about to do, they are side by side over the start-finish line. How's this for a championship? That now puts Scott Mansell back into the championship leading position. He is up into 3rd position. That gives him 60 points. That puts him on 520. Steve Burgess leads the race and would end up on 519. There are still 2 points for fastest lap to be awarded. They are going the way of neither driver at this stage, because Scott Mulvern has posted the fastest lap of the race. So Scott Mansell has done everything right here. I suspect that Sven from Nielsen Racing gave him the hurry up there and told him he'd got to gain the place. Here comes Steve Burgess. He really needs to have posted a fast lap time, because it's now only the fastest lap of the race that he's going to win in the championship, because time is running out again though. Scott Mansell having to defend from Tom Ashton, who is great to see him back racing in Radicals. He's been missing for a couple of seasons, as Steve Burgess goes through and over the start-finish line to start what surely is going to be not far away from the last lap of the race now. So Burgess goes through, another lap completed for him. You can see just how far away that James Abbott has pulled now. Now he's got himself back onto the lead lap of the race. Steve Burgess, though, is he heading towards a championship, or is he heading towards the runner-up spot? He has done everything he could have done. He's out front, he is leading the race, but he needs an extra couple of points for fastest lap if he wants to claim the championship, based on the current position that Scott Mansell is in, and that is 3rd in the race. There goes Scott Mansell, round through Paddock Hill Bend, starting to climb the hill towards Druids. There's Graham Tilley, who's dropped down through the order now, and is currently in 2nd position. So Matt Bell having done all the hard work in the early stages. But I think he's sufficiently far up the road that he's not going to get caught by Scott Mansell, Graham Tilley. As here is Scott Mansell, the champion-elect, turns his way in towards Surtees Corner. Tom Ashton's black car, having been dealt with a lap or so ago, is now just a couple of seconds adrift. And here comes Steve Burgess, round through Stirling's, and accelerates his way up towards what will be the checkered flag. Here comes Scott Mansell round through the far stretches of the circuit. That's Hawthorns he's just gone through. The checkered flag is about to be received by Steve Burgess. Steve Burgess comes over the start-finish line. He punches the air with delight, but he hasn't set the fastest lap, which means that he wins the race, but he is not going to win the championship as long as Scott Mansell can take the checkered flag. Here comes Graham Tilley, pounded over the line by Ollie Hancock, who is a lap adrift. But it is going to be that car there, number 63, which is Scott Mansell, who will have done enough. 3rd position for him is going to mean it's enough for him to claim the championship. Steve Burgess has done everything, but it's going to be this car here, that being Scott Mansell, who will claim the championship and is the 2015 champion. What a way to end our 2015 Radical Enduro Championship, with Scott Mansell and Nielsen Racing ultimately claiming the championship title overall by just 1 single point after a full season of racing. Had Scott Mansell not have claimed that extra position with a lap to go, or had Steve Burgess have set the fastest lap on the final lap of the race, it could all have been very different indeed.
Well, Steve, congratulations on the win, and commiserations for missing out on the championship by such a narrow margin, but you really did everything you could, didn't you?
Yeah, I had a great race, flying start, and not much, like I say, nothing else I really could have done. I set the lap times, and towards the end, I got into the lead, and it was fairly comfortable. But I just wait for the radio message to come through to find out where Scott finished, and unfortunately, it was 3rd, not 4th.
Yeah, absolutely. At what point was that you found out?
Not till I crossed the line, so I don't think they want to put me off my driving with telling me, but yeah, unfortunately, that's the way it goes.
Well, Matt, Graham, congratulations. A good, solid 2nd place to end the season. Now, Matt, you started. How were the opening stints?
Yeah, no, they were good. It's obviously quite hard with a heavy fuel load to get going, but the tyres were better at the start, so I had quite a lot of grip. I managed to get on with it, get past Steve, because as you'll notice with Scott Malvern, who got stuck behind someone all race, getting past around here is extremely difficult. So if I was going to get a gap for Graham, I had to get on with it in the first 3 or 4, and then really it was just a matter of pacing myself, putting in some good consistent lap times. I think I was within 2 or 3 attempts nearly every single lap, and then get to the end without trying to make any mistakes, so it was good.
Yeah, good job from you. And Graham, of course, he did give you that nice lead. Is that big pressure getting in the car when you've got that to deal with?
Yes, it is, especially when somebody's as fast as Matt and you don't want to throw it away. And until this morning, I'd not driven a Radical around the circuit in the dry. I've driven around the Grand Prix circuit in a Caterham, which is a fabulous car, but the Radicals are something else. They've just got so much downforce and grip, and getting used to the speed out the back of the circuit is something else. It really is very, very fast. And I didn't want to look silly and go off, so build up slowly. And then right at the end, we got a lot of understeer, and I just thought, I need to finish, I need to be sensible. And shame I couldn't win, but for him, because he's the star, I just made it happen at the end, that's all.
Well, Scott, I think that's what you call winning the championship in style. The final race, almost the final laps, you just needed that position to take the championship, and you did it.
Yes, it's been an interesting race today. I actually wanted it to be a little less exciting than it was, but to take it on the penultimate lap was really good, and it was an exciting move on Tom.
Yeah, absolutely. That move was what it all came down to. Was there any doubt that you'd be able to pull it off? Were you worried at that point?
Yeah, absolutely. Tom was defending quite heavily, so I went to the outside of him, jinked up the inside, and put it up the inside in clearways.
It's certainly a great feeling now, and you can go home knowing that you've done everything you needed to do and that you are the champion.
Yeah, fantastic weekend. I just want to say thank you to Sven at Nielsen Racing and everybody who's helped us this year. It's been a good one.
Congratulations to you all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, what a fantastic race that was. Happy faces all round, and well deservedly so. But that concludes the racing action here from Brands Hatch today and concludes the season. Do join us after the winter break when we'll be back with more fantastic racing.